In advance of the Federal Reserve's next move in May, all inflation indicators are calming down. The Rule of 72 is back in a battle of stocks versus bonds versus now, somehow, savings accounts. Bitcoin, I have one word: wow. And there's more to this story than just the price action. And housing and inventory, it looks like some special use permit conversions have started to take hold in San Francisco, converting some unused office space into residential. Welcome back to This Week in Mortgage, everybody. My name is Sam Battaglia, your favorite mortgage broker in California, here at Mortgage Black in Beverly Hills. I hope you had a great week. All right, the Federal Reserve, they're going to meet again in May. And all inflation indicators that they're going to walk into that meeting with are showing that inflation is down. Makes sense. We haven't been dropping money out of a helicopter, so to speak, in a while. So, of course, as we talked about for the last few years, the consumer does not have an endless trough of cash. And the prices aren't going to run up anymore because the supply chain is figuring itself out, which is welcome news to get the Federal Reserve off their foot off the gas, for that matter. The Fed did get the jobs report for March last week, and it was in line with expectations. Should not rattle their cage whatsoever. And I believe in advance of their next meeting, they are going to get the April jobs report. And that may just rattle their cage, but I doubt it because it shouldn't be too hot. Quick note about the Fed and their target rates. I don't think, in my opinion, they're ever going to see 2% inflation again if they continue to measure inflation the way they are, which is including shelter, which, as we know, is housing. And when you talk about shelter, you're talking about buying a home and renting a home shelter. And there's a shortage of it. So they're going to have to start measuring excluding, and they do, but shed more of a light on it, minus shelter and housing. Otherwise, they literally will never see their 2% target because there is a supply constraint on housing, and there will be for probably the next decade at least. And as I always say, the Federal Reserve has had no reason to raise rates for a long time. I do believe they are probably going to raise rates 0.25% the next meeting, and maybe even after in July, but that's what everybody's going to be speculating about for the next 3 months. But I will say this, and I will stick by this. The Federal Reserve does have to raise rates to cut rates, and these last few cuts, I think, are going to be insurance that they can go a little bit deeper the first time around. And I'm going to maintain my call of the first rate cut will be 100 basis points when the Fed decides to pivot. Moving on to the Rule of 72. Very interesting number of 72 in the battle of stocks versus bonds versus savings accounts. So the Rule of 72 in economics is this. If you take the number 72 and you divide it by the interest rate return you are going to get on your investment, your money will double every you'll get the rate of your money doubling. So, for example, Rule of 72, let's say you're getting a 6% return on any investment vehicle. Divide 72 by 6, your money will double every 12 years. That's pretty good without zero risk because, as we know, unfortunately, 12 years is not that long of a time. And there are some places right now to park your money. Municipal bonds, savings accounts for that matter, are getting close to that level. Not there yet, obviously, 1.5% or so off in most cases. But to double your money every 12 years at a 6% rate of return with no risk, it's going to be a big problem, I think, for the stock market moving forward. People can go park their money and go on vacation, essentially, and not have to react to earnings calls every 3 months. And the TINA trade I've talked about for some time, TINA standing for There Is No Alternative to Wall Street Stocks. The TINA trade has been, is, and will continue to be non-existent because of the Rule of 72. Moving on to Bitcoin. It is rallying like crazy. It is by far the number one issue that you could have put your money into starting this year to gain a max return. It's nearly up 100% at this point on the year. Here's what I'm trying to figure out about Bitcoin still, because I still don't get it. It doesn't really exist. It's an algorithm based on confidence. But a couple weeks ago, I said Bitcoin was acting as a flight to safety and quality, much like treasuries and gold. Now I'm starting to think Bitcoin is not only acting like a flight to safety and quality, but is also, could be, a front-running market risk sentiment leader. Because as we saw the flight to safety and quality, I thought, lately we've seen it continue to rally. At the same time, stocks have bounced a little bit off their recent lows. So Bitcoin looks like it could play multiple positions in our economy, a flight to safety or a front-running risk sentiment leader, which are literally opposite things. So I think this story still has a lot to be told when it comes to what Bitcoin actually is in our society. The most important thing about Bitcoin, though, this is the more to the story part. Why? Why is it rallying? That's what the Federal Reserve really needs to get their understanding of. They need to ask themselves, is there a bigger underlying question in the confidence behind our banking system? Because as we know, people have been pulling their money from regional banks and smaller banks because of the fear and the recent fiasco in the banking industry. We know they've been sending it to the big money center national banks, and they've had to have sent it to Bitcoin. Otherwise, where did the money come from to rally it? So the Federal Reserve does have to figure out, why is Bitcoin rallying? Forget about the number. That's inconsequential. That said, that number, I believe, I'm going to make another call here. Bitcoin will come close to, give me a little benefit here, within 10%, 15% of an all-time high at some point this year. We will see how that shakes out. All right, moving on to housing and inventory. And for the first time, I think I can actually relate the commercial office space market to the residential market. A couple notes first, though. There are some huge defaults, as we discussed a couple months ago about this shoe to drop in the commercial space. There have been some huge defaults. I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollar defaults on huge buildings that you will see in the skyline of many cities. So, of course, like we talked about, the lenders and the landlords, the owners, are going to do some workouts to figure out how to keep everybody afloat in this environment. But the conversion that I've been talking about, that I believe is just about time and a little bit overdue, of converting some office space through some special permits to residential space. Like I said, it's not going to help the inventory problem all the way. It's not going to solve it, I should say, but it will help things out. And they've started this in San Francisco, where they're talking about, and I think issuing some permits to start converting some of this empty office space, which odds are, because of our society and how we work now, will continue to remain empty. Special use permits have started, which in some cities will work. In some cities you can't do it, but in some cities will work. And it's nice to see San Francisco up north there taking the lead on this. All right, mortgage rates. 10-year Treasury yield holding around that magnetic, magical 350. I wish it was a 250. It'll be there by the end of the year, as I said. Knock wood. But the 350 yield, magnet, that's where yields want to sit right now in the 10-year. And quick note about mortgage rates and consumer appetite. It was really weird. A few weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I said that when I'm quoting our clients and I quote them something in the 6s, no appetite to borrow. I quote them something in the 5s, a little bit of an appetite. And I actually read an article this morning that most consumers don't want to start buying a house until or buying a shelter, until mortgage rates are at 5.5% or below. We're getting there, folks. It's getting there. But I will tell you this, once those rates are steadily back into the 5s, mid-5s, God willing, towards the lower 5s, we will see a lot of activity kick up in the real estate market. Okay, everybody, that is my show for this week. As always, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. If you have any mortgage-related questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Have a wonderful weekend. Please take care of each other, and please be safe. Thanks again.